fire is the difference between endurance and comfort. It started with a bare rock. The foundation of any lasting structure dictates its lifespan. Building directly on soil invites moisture rot, so the builder chooses an elevated, moss-covered boulder. Clearing the stone provides a solid, dry anchor point for the heavy timber frame to come. Even a small hand axe is enough to strip the surface debris down to the hard granite beneath. A stable base is essential here. The uneven surface will require precise joinery to ensure the vertical load transfers safely into the rock. With the primary timbers shaped, the A-frame is hoisted into position. The triangular geometry is inherently stable, deflecting wind and distributing weight outward. Instead of nails, the joints are locked with hand-carved wooden pegs. Driving the pegs tight creates a friction fit that actually grows stronger as the green wood dries and shrinks. This traditional mortise and tenon approach ensures the frame can flex slightly without shattering under heavy snow loads. As the roof poles settle into place, the bottom plates must be anchored. Using a manual auger, he bores deep into the basal logs to accept massive wooden dowels. This mechanical bond pins the entire skeleton to the stone. A hand auger cuts slowly but cleanly, pulling continuous shavings without tearing the grain. Every hole and peg acts as an anchor point against the lateral forces of mountain winds. The raw framework provides shape, but no protection from the biting cold. Moss has been used as a natural insulator in forest shelters for centuries. By pressing thick patches into the exterior gaps, the builder creates a living barrier that blocks wind and traps stagnant air. Unlike synthetic insulation, live moss breathes, allowing moisture to escape the interior while retaining heat. He lines the floor with the same material, creating a compressible, dry layer above the cold stone. It is a slow, meticulous process of sealing every draft. After shaping the earthen stove, construction shifts to the retaining walls. Heavy logs are hauled in and notched with a small axe to interlock at the corners. The saddle notch is a time-tested technique that uses the wood's own weight to create a tight seal. A precise groove prevents the logs from rolling and minimizes the gaps that cold air can penetrate. He drills through the stacked timber, driving long wooden pins deep into the courses below. These vertical pegs act like rebar, tying the individual logs together into a unified, rigid barrier. Trimming the pins flush keeps the surface clean for the next layer. The wall slowly rises, transforming the open front of the shelter into a fortified defensive line against the impending winter weather. With one side walls established, a massive horizontal crossbeam is maneuvered into position. He bores into the timber, relying on the auger's sharp flutes to slice through the dense fibers. The beam locks onto a vertical post, transferring the massive overhead weight straight down to the foundation. Striking the joint with an axe head forces the wood fibers to compress and mate perfectly. This intersection is the critical load-bearing point for the forward canopy. The roof structure nears completion as the final rafters are pinned in place. For the entryway, the craftsman selects a naturally curved branch, drilling it to serve as a structural arch. The curved profile of the entrance is particularly important, as rounded shapes distribute compressive forces far more efficiently than flat lintels. It also lowers the ceiling height at the door, minimizing heat loss when entering or exiting. The final log is hoisted onto the peak, locking the entire wooden grid together. Standing back, the raw skeleton of the cabin is fully realized, engineered to withstand the crushing weight of winter accumulation. A heavy-duty plastic membrane is stretched across the log roof, introducing the first modern material into the build. Wood and moss alone will eventually leak under sustained freezing rain. The impermeable barrier guarantees the interior stays bone dry, shielding both the inhabitant and the earthen stove from catastrophic moisture. Smoothing the tarp taut prevents water from pooling in hidden depressions. Wooden wedges are driven into the frame, pinning the sheet securely against the fierce updrafts that sweep through the valley. The structure is now a sealed envelope. A layer of soil has been packed over the tarp, ready to receive a living roof. Deep in the forest, the builder harvests thick carpets of vibrant green moss. Pressing these dense patches into the roof, soil provides exceptional thermal mass, absorbing sunlight during the day and radiating it slowly at night. The root systems will eventually bind with the dirt, creating a durable, erosion-resistant shell. Beyond insulation, the live moss completely camouflages the structure. The sharp, artificial lines of the roof disappear, blending the cabin seamlessly back into the hillside. It is a fortress hidden in plain sight. The front enclosure is finished with a unique centerpiece, a massive, hollowed log acting as a structural window frame. This solid ring of timber provides a portal to the outside without compromising the integrity of the stacked wall. By placing the final log segments tightly around the ring, the facade becomes rigid. But even the best joinery leaves micro-fissures where freezing drafts can enter. He spends hours meticulously packing loose moss into every visible gap on the exterior. This process, known as chinking, is critical for winter survival. The moss compresses into the crevices, expanding slightly as it absorbs ambient humidity to create an airtight seal. Every plugged hole dramatically increases the efficiency of the stove inside. The shelter is no longer just a windbreak. It is a thermal vault. To support a heavy wooden door, a rigid frame must be anchored directly into the earth. He whittles a deep notch into a vertical post, carving away the sapwood to create a clean, flat mating surface. The post is driven hard into the frozen soil and wedged tightly against the log wall. Precision here dictates whether the door will swing freely or bind on its hinges. The twin vertical poles establish a plumb, true entryway in an otherwise rustic, uneven structure. With the heavy door hung, the interior is sealed, and focus shifts to the heating core. A portable steel wood stove is positioned squarely on the dirt floor, safely distanced from the flammable timber walls. The metal stovepipe is routed through the roof, engineered to draft smoke efficiently while radiating residual heat back into the room. To maintain a view without bleeding warmth, a circular pane of clear plastic is stapled tightly over the hollow log window. The dead airspace between the plastic and the harsh exterior acts as a thermal break. As the first snow of the season begins to fall, the shelter transitions from a construction site into a functioning winter refuge. Outside, the temperature plummets as the snow accumulates. He splits small, dry kindling with a hatchet, exposing the highly combustible inner fibers of the wood. A cold metal stove requires a rapid, intensely hot initial burn to establish a proper draft up the chimney pipe. Inside the dark cabin, the kindling is stacked loosely to maximize airflow. Once lit, the flames catch quickly, pulling oxygen through the bottom vents. The thin steel walls of the stove begin to heat immediately, throwing vital thermal radiation into the small, insulated space. The heavy stone and earth construction will soak up this heat, turning the entire cabin into a slow-release radiator against the freezing night. The stove doubles as a high-heat cooking surface. A cast-iron skillet is placed directly over the firebox, absorbing the intense thermal output. He prepares thick steaks of cauliflower, drizzling them heavily with a mixture of crushed garlic, red pepper, and olive oil. The oil coats the dense vegetable, ensuring an even, aggressive sear when it hits the hot metal. Cooking inside a sealed shelter requires careful fire management to prevent overwhelming the small space with smoke, but the steady draft of the chimney keeps the air clean. As the cauliflower finishes its sear, thick slices of cheese are laid over the top. The residual heat trapped in the skillet rapidly melts the cheese into a rich, insulating blanket over the charred crust. It is a dense, high-calorie meal, precisely what the body requires to maintain core temperature after days of heavy labor in the cold. Sitting safely inside the glowing cabin, the contrast is absolute. Outside is a hostile, freezing environment. Inside is warmth, light, and sustenance. The structure, the stove, and the careful insulation all operate as one system, holding back the winter. Survival is more than just endurance. It is the quiet satisfaction of foresight and a well-built fire.